Hello, and welcome to the DoneJS contributors meeting. Today is Friday. My name is Chasen Lahara, coming to you from Long Beach, California. And today we've got a good group going. Good to see you, Christopher.
Hi.
Hey, good to see you, Justin.
I'm a dancing queen.
We have the Phillips brothers, Kevin and Matthew. Good to see you guys.
Kevin's a robot, if you didn't know. Yeah, I'm Matthew. I'm the person with the best demo today.
I'm excited to see that. And Kevin, you are a robot. I don't know if you know that, but you're a robot right now. And good to see you, Sheriff.
Hello, everyone.
Hey. So today we're going to go through demos, talk about what we've been working on over the last couple of weeks. And then if there are any topics for us to bike shed over after that, then we'll get to those. Does anyone, Matthew, you want to get us started with our demos, since you claim to have the best one?
Yeah, see what you're doing there by having me go first. Therefore, everyone forgets just how great it was. Nice try. I created this build, and it's actually on the NPMs now. Well, you probably won't use it there. But it's a build of CanJS that works with native modules. So native modules exist in, I think, all four modern browsers now. So you can do the script type equals module. You can import stuff. One package is what we use in a lot of demos. It's a CDN that is connected to the NPM registry. So you can just do like this and get can at pre. That's the pre-release. I think it's pre.2. And it's in this can.mjs is the name of the module. And you can just start importing stuff. And that's really cool, especially when you're just kind of getting to know CanJS, or you're just like, hey, I want to try this thing out real quick. I don't want to set up Steel or anything like that. I don't want to have to npm install anything. I just want to play around with CanJS, because CanJS can do a lot of stuff. So it's really awesome. If you actually look at the network tab, here, you get a couple of redirects because it redirects to the actual file, I think is what's going on. So here's the actual file. It's quite big right now, and that's because it includes everything that CanJS has, like, can feathers is in here, and React view model, so React itself is inside of here.
And it's not minified, and it has all our documentation in it.
Okay.
Or a lot of it.
Yes, the code comments and stuff is all in there as well. Yeah, and it's not currently minified, so we'll have a minified version. So, but it doesn't matter, right? When it's like super fast, especially. I mean, I have cache disabled, and it's still fast. It's even faster when it's from the cache. So, for local development and demoing stuff, it's pretty nice. So yeah, you can import anything you want here. Like, what are the kids importing these days from CanJS? I guess you can import like
Fixture and real-time rest.
Fixture is a great one, yeah.
And real-time rest.
Real-time rest, yeah.
Model.
Oh, yeah, let me show you. If you like put something wrong, the browser doesn't like that. It doesn't allow you to import something that doesn't exist. So you get a nice little error message there. Is it capital M model, or is it
capital model? But I think T is not.
T is lowercase, yeah. Hey, now you got all the stuff, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing of setting up a fixture, but you can do all that right here. I probably should have done that for my demo. Darn it.
Can you send me that code, and then I'll do that for my demo?
Yeah, I can do that. Anyways, yeah, you can do that. You can import canned zones in here. You can start doing weird zone stuff if you're so inclined. It's really cool. I recommend checking it out. Yeah, I guess that's it for me. Yeah, CanJS 5 is going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this. I think it'll be super appealing to people who just want to, like, hobbyists, or like you just want to. I mean, a lot of times you're just building a website. You just want you want to look at what a form submits and send data to the server, and this will make CanJS very appealing for those folks.
Or sometimes you're just like, hey, I have this idea. I just want to like quickly mock something up. I don't want to mess with like npm installing things and configuring my loader and all that kind of stuff. So it's very good for prototyping. All right. There was the best demo.
Oh, that was the best demo. Thanks, Matthew. Justin, do you want to keep the ball rolling with?
Sure. Matthew hasn't had time to send me that yet, so maybe I'll do that at the very end. But I'll do mine then real quick. Maybe I'll just come and show like, oh, here's how you would use can real-time rest and whatnot. So I first, just because I've been showing this to people, I thought it was really cool. Well, actually, let me take a step back. What I did is I upgraded a whole bunch of our internal apps. I upgraded 2 of them, Bitballs and Bitcentive. And then for Bitcentive, which was the more complex, bigger upgrade, I upgraded it from 3 to 4 and from 4 to 5. And I made these forum posts that link to pull requests, the pull request for that. And if you click on File Changed, I actually commented wherever, the first time I made a change, I mean, I changed a lot of things from value default, but the first time you see it, I made a comment and try to explain it, why the change exists and why I had to do that. This is a really good resource if you want to learn why to upgrade. I'm glad people are reading it. They even told me I made mistakes, which is really nice. So check this out if you're upgrading from 4, and I also made a 5.01. And the 5.01 is a lot less, especially because most of the 5.0 changes were really just making sure everything had this new identity property. Or every model type had this identity property. I'll specify the new identity property with can query logic. And the only other thing that I really wanted to show, like I got rid of this old algebra that was being created, and I created the query, like the converter logic for feathers. So I want to show that. So you'll see all of my model types, a contributor, their query logic for the connection. Let me actually expand this so you can see it. When you're building the connection, and this is using the new can, well, I guess it's using a custom configured supermodel. There are uses of the new can supermodel in this. But anyways, when you're creating your connection now, you need to give it a query logic, and that query logic just takes your type, and then the conversion logic if you have different parameters that your server expects, which Feathers does. So that I built in this Feathers query, which I should eventually turn into probably a package so people can use it if they're using Feathers and not have to recreate this logic. But essentially, I need to convert this, which is can query logic uses JSON API, where you've got your filter in here, and you've got your sort like this, and your page pagination like this, to Feathers, which is like this. Where it kind of uses $ to signal special, and then everything else is just a filter. So to do this, I exported this Feathers query package, and essentially toQuery takes what Feathers wants and converts it to what can query logic expects, and toParams does the opposite. And to be rather short about it, this is like all we do is kind of move the special stuff into the special object, the special stuff Feathers wants into the special object. Everything else we assume is a filter, and we eventually are just building this query to have the sort that matches can query logic, and this function reverses it. So that's all you have to do, and then every query logic uses that plus its own type to configure how to do everything. So that's what you have to do to upgrade 5. It's much easier than upgrade to 4. So that's it for me.
Sweet. Thanks, Justin. Kevin, are you still a robot? Or
I don't know.
Yay, you're fixed.
I couldn't feel it when I was a robot, so I don't know.
Do you want to go next?
Yeah, I do. Cool. So this week I have some really cool stuff to show off with DevTools. So I did a lot of things to hopefully make it more consistent. And then there's a new JSON editor, which I'll talk about. But the first thing that you'll notice is like this icon is grayed out now, and you can actually click on this and it'll tell you that this page doesn't have CanJS. If you go to a page that does have CanJS, like this one, you can see that this icon turns blue and says now this page is using CanJS, and it gives you some information and links over to the debugging guide to give you some info on how to use the DevTools, which I think is pretty helpful and makes it really easy to tell that it's working. The next thing that I worked on was this new JSON editor for editing view models. So now if you go into this CanJS view model editor, you'll see this this crazy JSON editor. You can now edit your view models. You can edit things inside of lists. Add new items if you want to. Oh, I don't know why it's tripping out. And all of this is updating up here in my app. You can see it goes gray. It disables itself while it's saving those changes so that you don't make multiple changes. And then, so that's pretty cool. It's pretty nice. It's working. You can see it's actually live updating when the view model is updating. So those updates are kind of happening both directions, which is an interesting problem. And then the other thing that I did was I worked on documenting this stuff. So now if you go to the latest version of the debugging guide, you'll have these instructions on how to install DevTools and how to use these different the different parts of DevTools with lots of screenshots and stuff. So yeah, that's it. If you haven't installed DevTools, you should go and do that now. Hopefully it will make developing CanJS 4 apps a lot easier.
That's really slick. Thanks, Kevin. I'm going to go next. Let me share my screen. All right. So at the beginning of last week, I published a new community update. This one was fairly short because we've been heads down on getting CanJS 5 out the door. But it has links to the Can Query Logic, Can REST Model, and Can Real-Time REST Model docs in the 5.0 site that Matthew and Justin kind of went over earlier. It talks about the improved can stash warnings that Kevin has shipped. And he wrote a blog post or a forum post about all of those different warnings, and it links to that. It talks about we've had a ton of Steel.js bug fixes. So if you're on Steel 1, upgrade to the latest things. And it talks about our last community survey, which we talked about 2 weeks ago here. So that was the community update. Link to it in the forum post. And then I've been working on docs and tests for can bind and can component. I want to briefly go through the stuff that I've been working on for can bind, not to like go through everything, but just to like briefly talk about like what is can bind and what docs are available on it. So in summary, can bind ties the values of two observables together. So like in this example, we have two defined maps that have different properties, and then we can create a new binding with can bind, and we can bind the those properties from the different maps together. So creating a new binding, and then there's also a new can value package that lets you get a one-way or two-way binding for any particular property. And I just realized that these docs are wrong. So this should be like child value bind, and then child map, and then child prop, and then parent parent map, and then parent prop. And then when the value of one changes, it would update the other. That's basically it. That's the fundamental idea behind can bind. There are a ton of options though. So we have internally, we're using, or we will be using can bind for can component, can stash bindings, and can route. So there's just a ton of different options to support everything that we need across those different packages. So the docs talk mostly about kind of, this is an infrastructure module. So the docs are mostly talking about the details that we would need for those use cases. But you might find Kanban useful in your application too. And one of the examples that I have in the Kanban docs is this from Can Components current documentation. So here we're using listen to listen for the value of a property in the view model to change, and then we're updating another observable's value when this one changes. And we're doing this with connected callback, which is good, but it can actually be more succinctly expressed and handled with Kanban now. So because we just want, when websites count changes, we want to update this observable, we can use CanBind, and we can say the value, we're using can value, getting the value of websites count from our view model, kind of have that as the parent, and then take that value to the paginate.count property in our view model. And then in connected callback, we can start that binding, and then when connected callback is when the component is torn down, then we can call binding.stop. So that's one use case that you might actually use in your application. I'm not going to go through all these docs, but there are docs on like basically how all of the different options work within Kanban. There's docs on the different debugging features that are enabled. So how you can name functions, that's what we use in can-stash bindings, how we set up the dependency data, even some docs on some of the warnings that Kanban generates, because it can detect when you have, let's say you have child and parents observable values that will never be able to be in sync. So like the child is always incrementing itself by 1 and the parents are always incrementing itself by 1. When Kanban sees that updates like that are happening and it stops them, it can let you know, like, hey, there might be an issue. Something might be happening that you are not expecting in your application, and it'll warn you. And then there's a how it works section that goes into almost like an FAQ of how stuff works. And if that wasn't enough, there's even docs on how internally it works when a binding is started. It'll try and make the child and parent match for two-way bindings. So there's docs on how all of that behavior works. That's it for me.
You mentioned why this is so nice in that not only like it might be a little bit shorter than setting up cross-binding or whatever yourself, but the other big reason is the dependency graph is recognized.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because in this scenario, you wouldn't be able to really map out that websites count is related to paginate, or that like paginate.count derives its value from websites count, which is something that Kanban will automatically set up for you and make it look good in the dev tools that Kevin just talked about. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Which this also reminds me of something else that. Well, are you done, Jason?
Yeah, I'm basically done. The only thing that I wanted to mention to tie it all together is like the reason why I'm working on this is because we're very close to having CanJS 4.3 out the door, and that includes being able to create new instances of components and render them in Stash templates, and this is all using like Kanban under the hood. So that's like the end value that people are going to get. Hopefully next week. I'm really close to being done with this stuff, so hopefully we'll have a 4.3 release out next week. Go ahead, Justin.
So I was just gonna. This just reminded me of something I did while debugging a problem I was seeing in Bitcentive. Was I wanted to know when a property was changing, right? I did the queues flush thing first, but the list was so long that it was kind of hard to see where it happened. And this can be a really nice way if you're in 4.0. If you want to be like essentially immediately like if you want this to fire off right away the second prop changes, if you bind on the notify queue, this will run right away. Like essentially is set in the same, like you could say, in the same kind of time space that when in the same queue that whenever prop changes, like this function will get called immediately because you're listening right away in the notify queue. And then I just did debugger after I logged the stack, and this was really nice because it's like I could see, I could hit a debugger right there. I could look at the normal call stack. I probably could have also looked at the used the debugger tools that Kevin made. I guess I just haven't gotten to the habit of that yet, quite enough. But then I always just have the log stack run so I can see exactly why it happened if it was triggered by other queues. And what I found was this weird race condition with promises and mutation observers, but this led me to the problem. So just a good technique if you want to know when something happens in property changes in CanJS.
Yeah, if people have good ideas for how to make this easier inside of DevTools, I'd love to hear them. I know, Justin, you mentioned maybe putting this in the view model editor somehow.
Yeah, break on change would be awesome.
Yeah, just might be hard to work that into the UI. We need to get a designer to help figure that out. But
you just need the right icon / emoji.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like a little breakdancing guy. That's the only thing. Breaking.
Just might be busy if you've got a lot of properties.
Well, yeah, you do it on like cover, so it only shows up as like your over the property, or you can right click. You just right click, break on property change.
Cool.
Christopher, I think you're the last demo. Do you want to take it away?
Sure. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mainly what I have to talk about today is Ilum, which is the currently rebranded version of what used to be React View Model. I know this was one of the things that people had requested on our last survey, or maybe the previous one. So we had React View Model. We reworked the way it functions. We made it more compatible with CanJS 4. It hasn't been tested with 5, but I think it'll work with 5. And we added some docs, still working on that. It's not fully ready, but my previous week has been cleaning it up, making it more stable, fixing a few bugs. Next week, I think will primarily be, or at least part of it will be primarily docs. So at the moment, this is the main documentation page, which is linked on the forum post. At the moment, it gives sort of a walkthrough showing the different ways of using it and eventually leading to the normal way with the connect style syntax. What it allows you to do is connect a view model either with can observe or can define to a React component, which can be a full component or just a render function. Connects them together so that your props is that view model, so you can benefit from the usability of observables and whatnot. And then it still ties in with the CanJS developer tools.
That's slick that it ties into the CanJS dev tools. Sweet. Is that everything?
Yep, that's everything.
Sweet. Thanks, Christopher. And I think we have a surprise demo. So, Sheriff, do you have something that you want to show? One more thing.
Yeah. So we have a good news for Webpack users. So now I was working on. So my screen is changed. You see my screen?
Not yet. It's still your face.
Might try undo if you. Yeah, there you go.
Yep,
okay.
We've got it now.
Okay, so I was working on the first in the first part of this issue for the debug code is left in production builds. So what I did is I put a condition here for Webpack for the Webpack. So when the code is building, all the wrapping code here will be removed in the production build. So like this, the code will be more optimized and eventually is more performant when it is executed. That's it. That's it. And now I have a bunch of modules to change.
So just to explain a little bit more, Sheriff, like the Webpack uses sets like how it works. Can you explain, like, why does Webpack remove that? What is it doing?
So CanJS is it works with SteelJS by default. So Webpack needs this information. Process env node env is production or development to detect if we are in the development mode or in the production mode. And like this, when the code is built, so these warnings or all the dev information will not be shown in the console.
Yeah, so, but I guess I'm saying, like, how Webpack works is it actually replaces process.env.node with development or with production. And then, like, when the minifier runs, it just sees production equals production, and it knows it can just remove that whole if branch. That's how it, like, actually works inside Webpack. So that's how, like, we're actually, it's funny, we're like, the Webpack is just replacing process end node with production, and it relies upon the minifier to go and actually, like, remove that code.
Yeah. Yes. So you are an English native. You explain this better than me.
No, your explanation was good, and I want to give a shout out to SteelJS 1 that does have this as an option. It has the Envify option. So if you want to use this if you're using Steel and you want to use this in your apps already, you can. This is going to be a nice addition for people who are using Webpack, though. And this will, I'm guessing, this will ship as part of. Since you're doing it, you're doing both. Are you branching off master or major? Right now?
From master.
Okay, cool. So we'll probably ship this as part of CanJS 4.3, depending on how the scheduling works out. So okay. Sweet. Thanks, Sheriff. Okay, I think that's actually it for demos. But we have some topics. Justin, did you want to talk about something?
Yeah, I do. I don't remember what the first one was.
Can route push state export?
Sure. So what do we want can route push state? So we have this with 5.0, the fact that we're going to all these named modules, and we're working with under the assumption of bundlers that do tree shaking. That makes us have any modules that we're doing side effects only, and not actually, like, exporting something that's used would get tree shaken. So things like can/stash bindings, which isn't as much of a problem. We can talk about why that is, but the biggest one is right now that we probably want to figure out is can route push state. What do we want its API to be so that, like, people need to consume it? I don't know if that makes sense. Let me open up the issue.
Yeah, I think it becomes more obvious with the issue and going from just like an import statement that would be removed in the final builds because it's not being used. And it would just be tree shaken away. Okay.
So yeah, we just need something. We need push state. Someone needs to interact with it in some way so that it becomes alive. Like, otherwise it would just be tree shaken out. So, I proposed a few ideas and there were a few other ones. One is, like, we just export it as a function and you call the function. Okay, and that just sets itself up as the primary routing connection. Another one that I had is that because we're getting like the stuff can bind is kind of could become more or less a first-class citizen. Another way that we could do it is you basically are calling into, like, can route kind of has just a shorthand of calling the new binder that Chasen was showing. Essentially, you say, hey, I want to bind my application view model to the route push state observable, and you could hook it up then to other observables in this show, like the hash change. Maybe we make the hash change observable. Like you have to, maybe we can't make can route, but then there's can route hash and can route push state, and you have to import one of those and then like set up a binding. There's a little bit like an extra step or something. I don't know. And then Chasen had, I think, which is a nice idea too, which is just like can route push state just exports route. So you just you would just alias it as route and then just use route. That's a good suggestion as well.
That should already work, I would think.
Does it export can route? I don't remember what it exports.
I think it does, but okay.
And then the this is just an idea that Kevin talked about to have, so you could bind certain parts of your app state to certain parts of your route. So I don't know. And then there's a discussion about like how it is stateful and stuff like that. I don't know if there's anything else in here you want to talk through. I don't actually think I read through this before, Matthew. So if there's something in here that you want to.
Mine was to have it be a constructor.
Oh, okay.
We have lots of observables that are constructors now. So in this, it kind of, to me, it conveyed that you're creating a new observable that happens to be
all of them.
That'd be a weird thing to do. Don't do that.
Yeah. Sometimes I get the singleton constructor, but sometimes it feels weird, like when the API is like that, because then it just, for some reason, I see new here. It makes me think like, oh, then that's a possibility.
What if you constructed well, I mean, I guess this problem exists either way. You wouldn't be able to create multiple push states, but you could create a push state and a hash change and bind both of them. What happens if you do that?
That's a good question.
I don't think you can call start twice, right?
No, but you could do route.
Effectively calls start. Effectively calls the bindings start method.
The way we're doing now is like the only way that actually prevents multiple. Maybe no matter how we do it, we're gonna have to enforce that.
Yeah,
right, because if we did it the bind way, you could do route.bind to push state, route.bind to hash change.
Yeah.
Route.start. And it's like, what?
I mean, we could have like bind itself if it notices that you've cross-bound like the same thing multiple times, like give you a warning, like, hey, do you realize this value has been bound like to 3 different places? But that actually kind of happens in can-bindings. That will happen. I don't know.
The bigger problem, I think, with mine, so I'm going to go ahead and shoot mine down a little bit, is that it is an observable, but what happens to, like, page there? Like, where is page? Like, do you have to call route.getPage to get the page? I guess that'd be okay. Anyways.
Yeah, the reason why the reason why I was thinking about this is this can route push state. If we treated it as like an observable, that observable like technically exists already. Like there already is this push state observable that is like a simple observable. It just once it's bound to, it starts listening to the hash, and it just in this case, it listens to the URL and does all of these other things to like change the listen to anchor click and stuff like that to make sure it's changing the URL correctly. And then similarly, there's a can route works this way now too, where there's this hash change observable as well. And I somewhat like the idea of like there's just observable. You know we have attribute observables. We have like all these other kind of observables that we make, and they're this like what's the term called? We're like grain. The Chicago Board of Trade did it to grain. It becomes a commodity. Right, and it's just like, oh, there's all these observables, and you just are wiring them up to each other in unique and fun and interesting ways. And can-route is just like, it's just one of those. But I do like if we don't want to like rock the boat at all, I think this is the way to go.
Let's rock the boat. I think. My biggest thing is like we can't keep having hash change be the default. We gotta change that. Or I say we don't have any default. You gotta import one of them.
I mean, I'm more or less okay with that. I still do think that hash change is push state. The problem with push state is it requires a lot of setup on the server to be able to like. Route all those different pages, all those different URLs can still route to like your same initial HTML page, and that we don't have we need for the routing guy like an explanation of how to do that and how to set that up. It's really maybe we do somewhere in can-route push state stocks, but that's the reason why it's always been the hash change is because it's like, well, it works right now. You don't have to do anything on the server. But I'm fine with deprioritizing it, making it so people have to do, we could have can-route hash, and can-route push state. And you just import.
What about, so I guess the other thing I liked about the constructor, well, there's a couple things. Number one, it conveys to me that the thing's not setting up any stuff in the background. Like, is can-route push state actually doing anything when you just import it? Like, does it have any side effects just by importing it?
Right now it does. But I do, no, let me take that. I think the constructor is totally fine. I think it's fine to do new app VM, new route push state. I'm
Well, I know, that's fine. I'm just discussing. I'm not arguing. I'm just wondering. With this way, what would route push state be? It would be an observable.
Yeah, be this observable here.
Which is essentially what I'm saying we should export as well. But it's just exported as an instance.
As a constructor function. Right now it's kind of set up to it pushes itself like we build the observable and then it just it creates its own instance and then sets itself on the route. Okay. We won't need that. No, this would all go away. There might be some concerns about like how replace state if we want to be backwards compatible with these things, like how because they get assigned to route, and it's like suddenly route has all these 4 different methods. Mm-hmm. Well, what you would probably do is put these methods here, like up on your. We would tell people to do something more like. With this, we'd probably go to something more like. You would probably do something like that, but you would want to keep a reference to this, so you would like. And then if you really wanted to do those things that were done on the route, now you would probably just call them on your push state. Like that. That's not like a crazy breaking change considering, I don't know how many people are actually using those methods. Where do they go?
The other consideration here, I think, is testing. Like making it easy to create a mock route thing or something. And I know we have some of that in our own testing.
Yeah.
Just because there's now this pattern that we've been talking about where people will set up the routing like in their application view model. you still want to be able to test your application view model. So
yeah,
what do you do there? Like, do we need to have some way to?
Yeah, so I mean that we could even create the mock. We could expose the mock one. So there could be a can route mock or something, and that's just all that is the that's the same observable that's already in can route. There already is a mock one somewhere.
Just doesn't hook up the actual route.
Yeah, it's
Can route no op.
Mock route binding.
You see it? Oh, there it is. Yeah. So this is, I mean, it's just in this case, it's just like a singleton as well here. But it's just this observable that looks just like the hash change because it has like this. I just make it so the URL includes that and works just like the hash change one. So, but it basically has a value essentially.
Okay.
Cool. So the other thing I was going to ask is, we want to make sure that the graph looks right. Does this route.bind solution make it so that the graph works correctly?
Well, that's what. If this underneath is using new bind,
Right.
So what that that copies everything on the right, the second argument over to the first. No. Well, and vice versa. It does.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Okay.
Well, I think that there's a slight difference here is that this route bind is not directly because it needs to essentially wrap this with a or an observation and then listen to when that changes the serialized form of this, and then it sets up the real cross binding. Because new bind, like the new bind I think Jason made needs to single value observables. But they can, on a change of one, you can do anything to the other side. You can totally overwrite how updating the other side happens, and it ends up updating the other side by calling dparam on this, and then calling update on this. And then when this serialized compute that's built from this changes, it just essentially uses param to then set this side. And that's all that's really going on in can route now. One final suggestion then that I would like to do then, if we're gonna like overhaul the API a little bit, I'd like to just keep going down that road and remove some of the cruft. Like this still has an attr method. Like can route has an attr method, so you can and it'll change whatever this is. I'd like to make it so that those kind of methods don't. Like the things that were supposed to be like methods that we tacked on to make it look like an old can map observable, I would like to remove those.
How would you do that then? You have to directly modify the VM?
Yeah, you just directly talk to it, or we can still make it so like can route has what I would probably do is make it so it's more like can maps, that there's a get and set method. Just I think we should still have support the get and set method because it should be a define map, but just remove that attr on it, essentially. That's all it's still possible to change it, or you could use can reflect. We can still make it so if you call can reflect on it, it will essentially setting it's observable, and that's all kind of still supported. I just want to get those because even bind, this is a breaking change here, because bind, we could detect the arguments are different. It's not a function, but there is an old bind where you listen to the route changing.
There would still be a route.data though, right?
Yeah, we can still make route.data. I really just want to remove attr. That's how I really want to do it. Maybe we should just leave it there to make people happy. It really isn't hurting anybody. But this is kind of a breaking change because there is a bind method. It's supposed to bind events, but we could detect it. There's just a bunch of cruft. I don't know. There's just a bunch of cruft in can route dealing with old can maps that I want to go away. But
I'm not opposed to any of these alternatives with bind or however we decide to do it, and I'm definitely not opposed to removing cruft and cleaning up can route. I know there's a lot of stuff in there. I think in the sake of just like being able to ship CanJS 5 sooner, we just go with not changing anything. And I didn't even realize when I wrote it that my proposal would already work because can route push state exports can route. So I think it would be better to just like not do anything and show this as the pattern, and it'll just work.
I'm fine with that for now.
You're no fun.
Does this work with the graph? What does the graph look like today? I've never seen like the route data show up in a graph.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it'll look like. I know
it should, because you're using can bind.
Yeah, so maybe internally it will once you update it to use can bind.
Yeah, I have a PR open for using can bind, so that'll ship with 4.3, but I don't know what the graph looks like. I can find that out.
I feel like
basically it's sorry, I want to share my screen real quick. But basically it's setting the like hash change or push state observable as the parent, and then the serialized version as the child. And then like Justin was saying, it has like a custom set parent and set child that does stuff like updating the URL or updating the observable.
I definitely do like the idea of using the constructor also, because then it just makes, and it's to me, it's very nice if like I mean, in some ways, I'd almost like to just do like new bind and then pass the app-VM and the route push date and just call start. Because it's nice if what we eventually get to in CanJS is, yeah, this is like maybe a little bit easier or obviously this is a little bit easier or whatever. But it's nice if we just say like, you know what, there's these like 5-6 tools. Like there's these low-level like observable tools, and one of them now is bind, and there's going to be like can value, and then there's define map and can observation, and it's like you can, can stash bindings is essentially using this under hood, and you can, if you kind of get what these are doing, you can have a tremendous amount of power.
Yeah, I agree.
And I like that. And then you can like, oh, you want to detach your route? Well, you got a binder back from this. You just call binder.stop, and that's just like what you do other places. So it's, we're leveraging information. There's maybe a little bit more typing, but like the tools are all.
You naturally expect whenever you see something that's a constructor like that, you're like, oh, this is probably an observable. Yeah. I know how to use this thing. Yeah, it's like
the only
observables. Let's like own it. Let's like really do observables.
Yeah. So there's one drawback to this though, Chasen, which maybe is or isn't an issue. I mean, we can decide. If we're going to do this routing guide, do we want to do the routing guide against something that we think we want to change anyways? Or do we just say like, okay, we're going to do the routing guide, but we're going to release 5.0, then we're going to make this 6.0, and then we're going to write a routing guide for it?
In my head, I figured that we would write the routing guide, and as part of that, we would do discovery on all of the things that we want to make easier. And then we would end up using that to inform us.
Like a 6.0.
Yeah, in 6.0, doing like a way better version of can route that addresses the stuff that we just don't have good solutions for right now.
I'm fine with that. I think that's reasonable. Less fun, but more reasonable.
Yeah, less fun. It would be great to like clean this stuff up and just get it done, but I know. I think we can follow the path of least resistance right now and then end up with a good product not too far away.
Nope, we can't do that, actually. I just realized it's not going to work.
Not going to work?
It's not going to work because CanJS includes both route and route push state, and they're in a race condition to try to set themselves up as the default. We have to do something.
Can route import, can route push state import can route? So when
it does.
So it always comes second then. So because this is always going to run first.
I know, but I know that there was a problem. I don't remember what it is. So what happens? What happens if you? Yeah. So that means push state is always going to be on, right? Because
if you import it.
Okay. I'm gonna look into this. I feel like there's an issue here.
Yeah, let's build a little example and then maybe.
Well, I have. Yeah, I'm gonna look at what I did in DoneJS chat because it definitely had this issue.
Okay. Well, pending any problems, are we kind of like in begrudging acceptance that we will try to punt on this till later then?
Yeah, begrudging. Yeah, I used can route push date directly. I didn't even use it out of can. I'll look and see why.
Okay. Oh, well, you can't, maybe the problem that you're thinking of is like normally our applications, our view models in DoneJS just import can routes. The problem is if you want development.html to work, then it's importing can route push state in here. That's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do about that. I don't want to think through that right now because I won't come up with any good ideas. But let's move on. We've talked about this enough, I think. Sound good?
Was there one more builds?
What?
Was there one more topic you had about the final builds?
Yes, I just want to go through what I thought about the final builds well, at least what we would launch with for CanJS. Okay, so I was writing this up. I had a lot of trouble writing it up, but so I just kind of wrote some background information, more documentation for myself on how to like explain things to people. So there's kind of two more main categories that like I just talked about. Like there's a bunch of files out there that you can use and things like that. So the first is the individual packages. I am giving the recommendation for those are the people who need like long-term flexibility. They should just import those directly. They are written in ES5, JavaScript, and CommonJS. They can pretty much be imported by anything and everything. Then there's I think it's good to identify like what resource is for whom. So individual packages are for like anybody, made to work for anybody who wants like the flexibility to have kind of incremental updates and things like that. Okay, so then there's the can package. And I think the can package is what will promote for just like, you know, I would say like your everyday programmer. Not someone who's like trying to like optimize the world, but they're just like, I'm gonna use CanJS, I'm gonna upgrade like, I don't know, maybe never. Like, you know, you're just gonna like use it, and you know, you don't want to like think about all those different packages and managing all of that. You want us to do it for us. So then that's kind of what I would recommend there. And this is essentially now, well, I'll get to it. But the idea here is that it's essentially importing every package and exporting it. So this would still have like a whole bunch of files kind of would get imported or have to get built. It's not just like loading one file in the browser like Steel would not. It would still have like a whole bunch of files. You still definitely want like a development bundle for this. The next thing was this dist-can.mjs. This is the core all bundled together inside one MJS file, ES6 module format. So who I think this is for like demos and prototypes, and because it's smaller, it's like it's going to be whatever all of CanJS is. You know, if the minified version maybe be like 90K or something like that. This is for like people who just want to like throw a script tag or something like that in a page of one of these. They're just supporting modern browsers. They don't care about IE 11. They just want to get something up and working, and they're not really going to have a build system. They just want to get stuff up and working. They don't need all of the crazy tools, because I figure by the time you need all of the crazy tools, stuff past like the core, then you're in like you're probably professional enough where you need like a build system anyways. So this is for people who are just like, I just want to add some functionality to the web page, and I don't really want to think about builds. That's kind of in line with this can. Oh, this was supposed to be can.min.js, but I think I just copied and pasted wrong. So there would be a minified version as well. Just like, hey, I just want the minified version of CanJS. I'm going to put that in the page and just start getting stuff working, get my form to submit, load data, that kind of stuff. I almost thought about this should almost be just can components. You know, like, is this for those people? Do they even want the model layer? I don't know. do they want routing, or is it just like we're going to be more like Vue, and we're just going to be like just custom elements? Because are those people who, once you get to the point of models, would you have a module loader anyways? Part of me feels like yes. And then there would be the same kind of thing, but for everything, can.all is just like this can, except it has, it's 400K, it's gigantic, has every single thing inside CanJS. One reason to split can.all from CanJS, I think, is also that like we do have modules like can React View model or can Signal R, all these other things that like do import Kefir and stuff like that. This is huge, and I just think that like it's nice to have some other build that's not going to be loading jQuery, or maybe ours doesn't, or Kefir or things like that. It just feels weird, or like a specific version of React. Just feels weird to like bundle those ourselves. But unfortunately, from what Matthew tells me, there's not really good. It's not like we can have some kind of like configuration where like we've kind of aliased React to null or empty, and it just gets ignored. But then if React is on the page, it somehow works. I guess we could build our modules like that, but maybe I think it throws an error if it can't find it. There's no way to like inject it. So we kind of have a problem there until ES modules get bigger and better. And then I still think we should build, I didn't put them both in yet, but I still think we should build the old can like global ones that we built before. That's just so that if I want to update a JS bin to like using CanJS 5, I don't have to like switch module formats. I can just do it, which is nice for compatibility. So those are my ideas. Thoughts?
I was mostly nodding my head in agreement with most of the things you said. So I don't have any constructive feedback.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you have put all this down. I think, like you said, it's important information to explain what is for whom. Is there like just like a table that says use this one if you're this person?
Well, so that's what I was going to start writing that, like, as part of the guide. I wanted to just like, hey, I just want to play with CanJS right now. Go to this one. And then there'll be instructions on like how to use the actual, like, this isn't for instruction. I mean, I almost put this for like us and for me, or people who are like really more curious. I was going to stick this kind of at the bottom of the page. And the top of the page was just going to be more like, hey, what situation do you find yourself in? Go, if you don't already know exactly what you want, then this can help you figure that out and give people some suggestions, and then instructions on how to set that up for that suggestion. That is kind of like going to be a 3-part guide. It's like, let us help you figure out what you want if you don't want it. Then a whole bunch of different like how set up instructions for all the various different combinations. But maybe at the end is like, if you really want to know some information about this, like coming from a high level technical perspective, here's kind of a short, concise encapsulation of all of these for like an expert. So that's how I plan on structuring it. So anyways, the real point for me though, I think the real thing to me, the decision to make is, should we make it just a can component? Should there be just like a dist can dash component MJS? Or should we just because of can component, we just make it can component? We actually build, we make the same kind of build tools that Steel is doing in exports. We just bring them to can component so that there's, just so you know that there's this. If you were looking for something that's like mostly directly comparable to Vue, I feel like.
Do that.
Yeah, that's what
That's what I would do. I would just add a build to can component.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, but I would still document it here, I think, obviously. And then there's really 3. There's like, you just want like, you're not gonna need models, you're not gonna need routing, you just want like widgets, go use just can component. Okay, now you want some bigger stuff, models, then come here. And then you want everything, because mostly you're just like, you're building a demo, then you can use this one.
So then should the models do the same thing, where they have their own, like CanConnect has its own MJS build?
No, they're in the can REST model and can real-time REST both in CAN.js because they're core.
I'm trying to think through when we would show using the can component MJS versus the can MJS in our like guides and getting started.
I probably wouldn't in our, well, it would be in a lot of recipes possibly. I don't think it would really be in our getting started. I think it's more just like, I don't know. That's a good question because then it's like where are people actually going to find using that? Because we don't, the recipes can all use that one. I think the vast majority of them don't do route. I mean, almost every single one of them doesn't use routing.
Yeah, most of them just need can component.
Like maybe the technology overview. That is a good point. It's like, I was thinking about actually splitting technology overview up into like kind of a, what happened here? Oh, okay. Kind of like, I was almost thinking like, here's one, this is the actual technology overview page, and then there's like sub pages for routing and for the service layer.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Or maybe even just like the technology overview just kind of introduces, and then, I don't know. I was thinking about splitting it up, and then we could have the technology overview, if you're like on this version of it, it only really needs the can component build, but again, is it worth it? Like, are we? I mean, why even release it? Part of it, sometimes I go back because it's like, well, sure, the can.js build is going to be 90K or whatever. It's going to be like reasonably bigger than the can, the other one, but. Do we care? Like, is it just more confusing to have the can component one? Like, should we just be like, well, maybe you don't even care that much about the 50 versus 90K. Maybe the weekend warriors aren't going to be like, maybe the confusion isn't worth it.
I tend to err on that side, that the confusion wouldn't be worth it.
So then let's not build that. Then.
How does adding the build create confusion?
Well, if we point people to it, it does.
Inherently having another build isn't confusing, but where we would show using which file, and then for people who like let's say we just showed using the can component build in the setting up CAN.js. Like there's sections for JSBen, Webpack, Steel, and then there's, I think towards the bottom, there's like the script tags, and we would have like a module section there. If we showed the can component section, then people would definitely take that and then try and start doing stuff in the other recipes or guides or docs, and then would get that like, oh, can't find the module or whatever the error is in your console. And it's just a like, I don't think the savings is probably worth the size savings is probably not worth the potential confusion for newcomers who would just like give up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can just like, I think we can just say that in a build. It's like, I think it's fine to be like, you know, I'm just making widgets. You can just use this setup. And it's just so you know, it only has like component and define map in it, whatever. And we don't, everywhere else in the entire site besides the setting up page is just, I think we just show the can MJS everywhere kind of syntax and assume people are using that. And so core to me, just to remind people, like core in, at least as I'm thinking about it, does include can fixture now. The reason why, even though you would never want that in production, the reason why is because like so many of our demos and examples need can fixture, and it just like covers a ton of ground, right? Then we almost never need to show people can all because we have our fixture there. So.
Wait, is all that can core?
What?
Is all of that listed there, can core?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was almost thinking about putting converters in there because I like them so much lately, but I'm still holding off.
Yeah, I would put them in too.
Yeah, I'm still holding off. I guess, is there a reason you want them? Just, I feel like none of our examples really go through it except for the forms that. But
yeah, I was just thinking I end up using them in every.
yeah, I use them all over the place in every app. But
Yeah.
And people don't. I don't know if they know about them. I mean, we can always make that. I still feel like make that decision later. I don't know. I feel like we need a little bit more polish on their docs and things like that. All right. Any other thoughts then? Cool.
That was a good discussion.
Yeah, I'm going to continue kind of with what I had there.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else before we go? Oh, cool. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with more demos of what we'll be working on the next 2 weeks. Thanks for coming. See you guys later.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe and share and all that jazz.